Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It has been an eventful weekend full of level-headed discussion and good times galore. Now, of course, everyone's doom posting and talking about this looks great, this doesn't, yada, yada, yada. And I'm, of course, a part of all of that conversation and going to be regularly contributing to it over the next several weeks. Until we have anything that comes out of Media Tour, we have to be operating on speculation at this point for anything Final Fantasy XIV related. And as such, I'm going to be going through for the rest of the week and just kind of highlighting different sections that I want to bring about some discussion of while we're still in the dark on a lot of those details. I've already released a Pictomancer video and I'm working on my Viper video as we speak. I just decided to take a break and actually record this and get this done because, well, I don't want to have to stop and think about it while I'm doing something else or wait for the other thing to finish, etc., etc. So, with that, let's get into the Q&A quick this week so I can get back to working on that Viper video. Before we get started, don't forget you can ask questions in the comment section below if you want me to answer them. I can't always guarantee I'll get to every question, but I've been pretty decent at it over the last, well, how many episodes is this now? Almost at 500. Would you look at that? This is 496 right now. Nice. Almost at the big 5-0. That's crazy. That's crazy. Just thinking about it, it's just crazy. But anyway, yes, thank you to everyone for enjoying, for asking questions, and shout out to the sponsors over on Patreon. Nobody has to support. All my content is available for free. I don't money gate anything on any platform, but if you want to support the channel, then anything like what are they called, super chats, I think on YouTube, or the Patreon, or whatever it is you want to do, it doesn't matter. Or just keep watching the video because honestly that's good enough for me. Anyway, let's get into the Q&A. Man, I had to actually scroll through quite a lot before I got to a question. There was one that I was like, I started reading and it was like adding like Mog store items or like Fantasias and stuff to like a low drop rate thing in Bosia. And I was like, no, like the idea was kind of okay at the start, but then it was like, oh, all these things from the Mogs. No, that's never going to happen. So this is the first real question. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps, how are you? I'm doing fine. I hope you're doing fine as well. I had one small observation after watching the job action trailer, which may not mean anything, but I thought I'd mention it. Usually the new classes or the poster child classes are put at the beginning and end to build some hype and bookend the trailer. This time it seemed like the classes were just randomly placed wherever, ending with Gunbreaker. Yeah, I wondered the same thing. I was like, why is Gunbreaker last? Like, is Lionheart cool? Yeah. Is it end of the trailer when you have two brand new jobs cool? I don't think so. And it was also weird that Dragoon was first, which I was like, oh, it's being reworked, so they're just putting it first. But it's not really that reworked. So there's a lot of like weirdness to it. I didn't really understand the order. Like an Endwalker, they put Paladin at the end because, like you said, it's the poster child. They had Summoner near the end too because it was completely reworked. It never felt like there was a reason for the order in this one. And maybe that's because they're largely trying to keep the jobs similar-ish. And so they just kind of inserted Picto and Viper into their respective sections. I don't know, but it was incredibly weird. But at the same time, it means absolutely nothing. So it was just weird. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. Thank you for answering my question last week about mains and new player casual guilds. Hopefully this question isn't as much of a downer. I didn't even think the question was a downer. It was just unreasonably negative to oneself, but not necessarily a downer. Just finished watching the job action live letter. While we got a lot of new information, we haven't heard anything about possible stat or battle changes. That's because there won't be any. Like they've already said that like hitboxes being smaller is something and adding like a little bit of stress back into the game. We had a few offhand comments about like the increased length of things like Reprisal and Feint, meaning that they can better, you know, utilize the fact that these tools have that extra 5 seconds when they're designing fights to kind of encourage players to use them optimally. But I don't think there's going to be any changes to direct hit, crit, any of that. I think they're just leaving them as is, which I don't entirely agree with, but we realistically should have learned that from that live letter and didn't. So I think it's safe to say that there probably aren't any major sweeping changes to the way that any of the stats work or the way the game just flows as a whole. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Well met, Mr. Happy. Hello. First off, I want to thank you for introducing me to Magic Spoon as I've come to enjoy the cereal brand thanks to your promotion. I'm glad you enjoy it. They're sponsoring the channel for several months now, and I'm glad they've enjoyed working with me as much as I've enjoyed working with them. If there's anything I can always take a sponsorship for, It's food. You see yourself doing Twitch, YouTube streaming for the rest of your life? If not, what kind of career do you hope to transition to way later in the future? So, for the last 6 years, what I originally wanted to be doing was to be building towards financial stability. So Twitch and YouTube are generally considered to be not stable. And while I've managed to make a stable living out of them because of my consistency and, just, I guess, being a part of a community that's generally supportive towards news, guides, all that stuff. I wanted to be doing investments that gradually build my money over time. Some of those retirement investments, some of those more short to midterm investments, and no, not crypto. Staying the hell away from that, trust me. But I mean like traditional investments that try to build your money on money, compound your money as it comes in. I don't really spend a lot on myself. I get some nice food, I pay my bills, I take care of my cats, but I was raised in a family that didn't have a lot of that. My family basically lost everything when I was really young, maybe like 5 or 6, and my parents started working like 2 jobs each and developed some really bad habits along the way. And I saw them going through that. And I just decided when I got older, I was going to be fiscally responsible. Now, life doesn't care what you want. So obviously the stuff with my mother and, living with a partner who had expensive taste to say the least, really combined, I wasn't able to do as much of that as I really wanted to do while still keeping everything above board. So I'm kind of playing a late catch up with that at this point in my life where I now have the ability to work towards that stuff. So the idea is to go into investments, make sure that my money is growing in a lot of different avenues because I don't spend a lot of it, and then to be able to comfortably do kind of whatever I want for the rest of my life. I fortunately am also in a space where as long as I'm living in a location that's not like crazy expensive, I can kind of do this wherever I want. And quite frankly, video games, just being in the gaming industry, was what I always wanted. I always said my number one gift was my ability to talk nonstop about the video games that I love. So obviously you can't say you'll be doing one thing for the rest of your life. I think that's arrogant, ignorant, whatever int you want. But the goal is to create financial stability by investing the money that I have intelligently and allowing myself to kind of build up something like a traditional person would, just with a little bit more fiscal freedom, or financial freedom now. I don't know why I said fiscal. And creating that for later. I just wish I'd been able to do more of that over the last 6 years. And listen, just imagine if I had taken the $300,000 that I had been spending to help my mother and had that like in accounts that were just gradually compounding and building on themselves. That would be pretty crazy. Not many people have the opportunity to do that. I should have basically been set for life on investments after the Fat Black Chocobo event, and yet here I am. So, yes, I would like to do it for the rest of my life, but not so strictly as I do it now. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hey, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? You doing all right? It's nice to be back in the community after a while. Here's a veteran bounty bonus. We haven't had the bonuses in a while. First question is, what are your thoughts on another Revenant's Toll Firmament style area that changes permanently over the course of an expansion? I wouldn't really compare Revenant's Toll and Firmament so much as I compare Revenant's Toll and Idleshire. And I love it. I love when they give us a hub area that gradually evolves as time goes on. It just feels a lot better versus like tribal areas, which grow as we advance them, versus like areas that just kind of build up as patches go, kind of almost like to signify the passage of time. I love areas like that. Second question is, can you do a shout out to yourself or your partner version on Twitch where we are trying to get you the level 51 hype train for the it's not a hot tub mayo stream. It's just I eat a tube of mayonnaise. So, okay, what they're asking about for those of you on YouTube, my 10-year partnerversary is coming up on Twitch. Last year was 10 years of doing YouTube. This year is 10 years of being partnered on Twitch. And my chat made a bet with me that they could get me to a level 51 hype train. Hype train's basically just being like, you throw money at the streamer and it just creates this like artificial gauge that goes up. Now, a level 51 hype train roughly translates to 40,000 US dollars, give or take, depending on the region the subs are coming from. But it's a lot of money. And so I told them that they were silly and it's literally not a mathematically feasible thing to accomplish. And apparently they took that personally. So several people have said, no, we're going to make it happen. So that's happening on May 27th. That stream starts at 7 a.m., but probably I'm going to tell people to hold off until several hours in if they're going to make a serious jab at it. And if it goes, I'll cosplay as Titus. I got to eat a tube of mayonnaise. There's a few emotes that I promised people, and I'm sure I'll come up with something else in the meantime. But I can pretty confidently say that thing because how? That's like Like how? It's not remotely feasible. So I don't know. That's what they wanted me to shout, but it's not a hot tub mayo stream. It's not what it is. Anyway, thanks for making me remind people. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Not a question, also not a hello, but I guess I'll read it out. Heard your description for those PF groups that can add some insight into one of the situations you mentioned. When a party leader leaves a group that is full and creates a new one, they are usually doing it in order to be at least... Oh, no. Okay, so I know what you're talking about. There's a few different scenarios that people are referring to here. Number one is the hunt train leader who leaves one open spot, usually as a blue mage, and just says, okay, this is where the train currently is. It's basically used to track the trains or to alert people who are even looking in the PF that there is a train. The one I'm referring to regularly kicks people who join, locks out certain slots to certain roles, and then sometimes leaves and creates a new one. And even before the new one leaves, before it even fills, they leave again, and then they don't make enough. It's a behavior I don't understand. I can't figure out what the point is. I know about what you're referring to, but that's not what's happening sometimes with the group that I'm referring to. So I have no idea what's going on. Also, I want to say that's a terrible idea, because if there's anything I've learned while doing the hunts, it's that people don't know how to make party finders. I have had several times where a party finder leader leaves, usually to like go catch another train on another server. And so they'll just pass leader to someone, and that person will be like, oh, I'm going to throw the PF back up. And then they throw up a cross-world party finder, which completely negates the entire thing. Like, you cannot use those in the hunt. In fact, that happened to me today while doing a Shadowbringers train. The leader left to go catch an Endwalker train on another server, and that exact thing happened. So not a good idea all the same. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Okay, yeah, job action trailer. Wow. Also, no hello. Wow. Y'all are terrible at this. So which three are your favorites? I don't even play Warrior, but the big axe had me grinning ear to ear. I also like Ren Mage having the 13 Crystarium, whatever level ups. Wait, graphic effect. Oh, okay. I was going to say, like, what? Crystal effects are pretty. Warrior was a nice, simple addition. I don't see any reason to complain about Warrior unless you hate Warrior being simple, in which case, go right ahead. Picto was a big favorite of mine. And then for the follow-up after, so I'll go Warrior, Picto. The last one a little bit tough. I think it's got to be maybe Scholar. I was a big fan of Seraphism. I thought that was one of the better showcases of the healers and of the jobs that were there. So those are going to be my three answers. And in fact, it's one from each role: Warrior, Scholar, and Pictomancer. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hello, Mr. Haps. Hello. Dawn Trail is promised to be the expansion with the most diverse content offering yet, with adventuring forays, a deep dungeon, variant criterion, lifestyle content, and a new limited job having been announced. So wondering if that meant there would be more content overall than during any other previous expansion, or if the total amount of content would be the same but would be reduced amounts of each type. For example, only one adventuring zone, one variant criterion. Well, we know there's more than one variant criterion. They've already said there's going to be more than one. They've said there'll be multiple. Deep Dungeon, you can expect one, and you can expect it to be about the same scope as the previous ones, though they did say they weren't 100% sure they wanted to do a Deep Dungeon. They might actually put that into another new style of content instead. So that's, adventuring zones, I would assume more than one, because it's probably going to be tied to the relic as a whole, unless they want to do something like Island Sanctuary, where parts of it unlock, but it's still the same zone. I don't think that's a good idea necessarily. I think it's just going to be the same amount per piece of content, like Deep Dungeon, 100 floors. Adventuring zones, 2 of them at least. Probably the large-scale raids within them. Probably duels within them. We already know there's more than one VNC piece of content coming out. It's just the same. It's just, instead of them being like, well, instead of doing like this, we're going to do this expansion. They're just like, no, just do a little bit of everything and keep updating the old stuff. And everybody should hopefully be happy with that. Second question, we know that CVU 3 was busy with a lot of future-proofing tasks during Endwalker, including the MSQ rework and the graphics update, as well as the development of 16. Think that has had an impact on the quantity of side content released during Endwalker? No, I think, well, okay, so let me be clear. 16, absolutely nothing to do with it. I don't know why people still throw themselves at it. Like, yes, do they borrow devs occasionally? Yes. That doesn't mean like, oh, we have to release less stuff for Endwalker. That they've been pretty open about saying that they put a lot of effort into future-proofing the game in Endwalker through things you've said like the MSQ rework, as well as trying out brand new things like Island Sanctuary. The problem was the reward structure for those things just fell through. We had a lot of great new ideas. Variant and Criterion was cool, but reward structure and repeatability suffered. Island Sanctuary could have been cool, but it became a spreadsheet simulator. We had 2 ultimates this expansion, one more than Shadowbringers, and we know that was because Dragon Song was delayed out of it because of COVID. So no, I think that, like, yes, things they worked on within 14 meant sacrifices in other places, but the 16 thing is just people trying to cope their way out of it. I think there's an equivalent amount of resource and dev time dedicated to creating side content as there was. Yeah, I think it was the same, if not more. It's just what they decided to do were not necessarily the things we wanted, or we didn't enjoy them as much as we hoped we would have. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Happy. Hi, hope you're doing well. You too. You may have a video coming up on this, given it seems to be the most talked about thing at the moment from the recent live letter. And I imagine HTTP may get asked about it during the media tour. But what are your initial thoughts on the whole job identity in 8.0 remark and what it could even really mean? I mean, it could just mean less tools that are so overlapped between the individual jobs, or retooling job gauges so they don't all have such a similar function. I don't think it's anything more severe than that. And he also backtracked on saying 8.0, just more so saying, well, in the future, you know, we haven't even released 7.0 yet, so let's not worry about that. So I think that's another one of those, like, knee-jerk. Everyone's kind of going nuts over like a little statement that was made on the side and are going to hold on to it way too much and kind of forget that Final Fantasy 14 at the end of the day is going to look, play, and feel the same no matter what they do. So I don't even take that comment all that seriously, given how, you know, side-handed it was. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Good morning, Happy. Good morning. Almost evening for me. Hey, there's somebody walking by. Hi. Hope you're doing well with the Mogtome event starting again. I've always thought they should add Mogtome rewards for Crystalline Conflict, not just Rival Wings and Frontlines. When the last Mogtome event started, it happened somewhat early in the PvP season. This definitely hurt Crystalline Conflict rank queue pretty badly because of the lack of an event tome reward. I think having at least one tome for playing, two for winning would be somewhat of an incentive. I guess offhand, I don't see a harm in it, but I think the idea is they want to draw more attention to the less popular modes and not to their competitive mode. They definitely don't want people queuing into ranked for Mogtomes. If you saw this at all, it would probably be for unranked, which I think is a harmless thing to add. The problem being that you might see everybody go to unranked Crystalline Conflict for this and ignore the other modes. And I really think they want people going into the large scale modes because it facilitates more people getting Mogtome rewards. And it's technically not as, well, I mean, I can't say it's not as popular. Frontline Roulette gets a pretty good reputation, especially for people trying to do like more daily leveling roulettes or working on achievements. So I think it is largely about the volume of people per instance they can get participating in the Mogtome event when it comes to PvP, and I don't see them doing it for Crystalline Conflict in the future. But I wouldn't mind if they did. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, hello, hola, what's up? What's good? Hey, you made up for the other people who didn't do it. I should cover all those who didn't say hi. I got a double whammy for you today. Cool. The current issues on and off with the DDoS attacks this past week, it's been worrying. Do you think they'll have this issue sorted by expansion launch? I mean, they already made a comment on this during the live letter. They said, yeah, they were shoring up their defenses. But keep in mind with the DDoS attack, it doesn't take much for them to make an adjustment to it and then initiate it again, and then it's a problem again. It's one of those, like, you can solve it for a little bit. You can shore up defenses to some degree, but then they change something and you kind of have to start all over with it. So it's just going to depend. If there was like a real motivation for it because of like the visa stuff and that's still not sorted soon, then you may see more of it. Or if it's just people wanted to do it and they just then, you know, it might still be there, but we don't know. There's no way to know. What do you think the chances are of Astro getting an Astro that feels more like it did in Stormblood? 0. You'll never see that Astro again, ever. I mean, that's not even me like being a Debbie Downer. There was never a chance of that after we moved into Shadowbringers and eventually Endwalker. And now, as we've already seen what Astro looks like now, you'll never see the Stormblood iteration of Astro ever again, or the Heavensward one for that matter. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. After watching the live letter, I noticed that White Mage and Picto both are getting new movement skills and realized it seems like they really want to increase the mobility of magic classes in some form. I think it's a sign of what's to come in fight design. Do you think I might be reading too much into it? I think you're reading too much into it, but I think that it depends on how you really want to look at it. Because like Astro, for example, Lightspeed is still kind of their sole movement tool as far as we can see. Whereas White Mage got a movement skill that kind of makes sense because Black Mage has a movement skill and they're supposed to kind of be like the high-end DPS versions in their roles. You know, Sage obviously has the dash gen ally. You have Expedience on Scholar. And then, of course, you know, most of the other jobs have some form of gap closer or something of the like. I mean, Black Mage has Ethereal Manipulation. So, you know, you don't want to keep movement skills away from Picto when Red Mage also has Displacement. It has Core. And Summoner basically just never stops moving. So, like, it makes sense to give them something, you know? It's kind of funny that Astro is the only one that I think we've seen that doesn't have an actual movement tool, but I guess they're considering Lightspeed to be kind of like the OP when it comes to really wanting to move as that job. So yeah, no, I think it's just kind of equalizing more things across the board. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Happy. Hi. More easy questions from me. This looks like it's just one. When are you going to release a video with all your predictions for Dawn Trail? I've been doing those for State of the Realm for the last like month. You should go watch those. We basically bring in some experts who know a lot about those roles, and we make a lot of speculation predictions there. What question do you have for Yoshi P when you next see him? I don't know that off the top of my head. Whenever I've classically done any sort of interview or anything with Yoshi, I never ever just ask Yoshi P something when I see him randomly at like a convention or at like a fan fest. I never do that. There's like usually a lot of people nearby that want to get in and say something. And I've had the privilege of speaking to Yoshi P and meeting Yoshi P a bunch of times. So I tend to just kind of fade out, like away from the crowd, because I've had that opportunity and not everyone else has. So I don't want to be like, oh, let me ask you a question that I can put in a video. Kind of, I'm like, no. Let everyone else, get a turn and spend time that, they may not have again. It's not fair to them if I'm like, yeah, I'm Mr. Happy. I'm going to walk up. Hey, what's up, Yoshi P? High five. I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, no, I don't do that. But if I were, honestly, I don't know. There's like a dozen different ones. I'd have to pick one, and I can't right now. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Yo, and another yo. Is that 3 greetings? It sure is. Thanks for the Dauntless game suggestion a couple weeks back for fist fighting playstyle. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Like the game really is only super popular in South America, but the fist gameplay is really good. I really like it. I was wondering, were you keeping an eye on a game called Rabbit and Steel? Yeah, I actually played it with Stahl and a couple of other people. I like the premise of it, but unfortunately, I don't find its design very colorblind friendly. You can make some adjustments, and there are some visuals with like, the arrows and the number of how many times AoEs are going to expand and yada, yada, yada. But all the AoEs are like the same color. You can make them all the same of a different color, but it really messes with me. And while I can eventually learn through that, I was getting a really bad headache trying to do it because I have to scan the whole screen so quick, and it's all overlapped colors, and it hurts my eyes to have to look at it. So yeah, I realistically don't want to spend the time playing that game. So after the first time playing it, I'll probably never play it again. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Good morning, middag, avond, Mr. Happy, whichever one applies to you at the time of recording. I'm going to say that's good morning, midday, and evening. So feel free to count the other ones towards any missed hellos. Sounds good to me, but we've had plenty of spares at this point. This has been at the back of my mind for a while now, but it got really dredged up when I was doing some Seed of Sacrifice Extreme. Seems to me like PAL's the odd one out when it comes to LB3 visuals. Theirs just hasn't aged well, especially with the direction the Paladin aesthetics have been leaning over the years. I don't know. I like seeing a giant wall. I don't think it needs to be a giant rock. I don't think it needs to be a puddle of shadow or anything. I don't know. I like just seeing a giant wall be erected out of the ground. So I'm going to have to say this one's speaking for yourself. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello, Haps. Hi, how are you and how are the cats? We're all doing good. I think Aloha's about to come meow into the microphone if you want to hear him. I'm asking this before the live letter, but I know I'll be in stream and I thoroughly enjoy your coverage just as I always have. My question here is, were you happy with it? And what would you have liked to be, what would you have liked to be in it emphasized upon more? It was pretty much as expected. I mean, they maybe could have gone into a few more details of some of the things that we saw from the job action trailer, but this was pretty on par for what we normally get. A little less detailed because of the number of jobs that they had to talk about. But yeah, it's just a matter of how you feel about any individual job or job change. And without the full picture, I refuse to make any outright claims about like a job or like how I feel about it. I just need to feel it first. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hey, Happy. Hi. Hope things are well. You too. In the Melee job speculation episode of State of the Realm, when talking about Reaper, it seemed like everyone agreed that Death's design isn't well liked and many people would be happy if it was removed in Dawn Trail, which it wasn't. Surprised by that, although my perspective is that as someone who hasn't played Reaper and Savage since the first tier. I quite like how its Death's design doesn't feel like other dots since its personal damage increase, even it's basically the same in practice, how it's used to get double communions inside buff windows. Plus, getting all the gauge and dungeon runs by killing mobs feels fun and flavorful if you're literally reaping their souls. Should be able to elaborate on why some people would like it removed or reworked. It's because it just doesn't fit. It's just like a random GCD with a random effect. And they have very deliberately moved away from that with a lot of other jobs. A lot of jobs used to have something similar to that, but they were dots or they were some other personal damage buff, just one-off buttons that you had to maintain. And they were pretty universally disliked back then. So when they made a new job and gave it one of those that essentially has to be maintained forever, without it really being engaging in their current kit, just a one-off button for single target or AoE that you have to remember to press every so often, it's just incredibly unengaging. For people who preferred the more buff or debuff management style of A Realm Reborn or Heaven's Ward, it definitely isn't a problem. But, you know, opinions be opinions, and, you know, a lot of people just weren't a fan of it. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hello. Longtime watcher, first time asker. Welcome. I've always enjoyed watching these Q&As. Thanks for the great content. No problem. The semi-recent changes to the achievement system was a really nice quality of life update, but the achievement certificate system never gets any love, you're telling me. So there may be a couple of rewards at the beginning of a new expansion. Do you have any idea how the achievement certificates could be updated? Give them more stuff, please. I hate that they have this fantastic system for encouraging achievement hunting for something other than specific goals, and they just give it no love because they don't want to overstuff it and then make people feel like they have to go out and do it. Oh, I don't care. Just give us more rewards. Hashtag Monets with Mr. Happy. Somebody's D is missing. Anyway, hello, hi. This was something I was wondering while watching the tank healer discussion that I don't think came up directly. Tanks and healers already having so many tools to deal with damage. Do you think there's a point where giving more healing and mitigation tools become counterproductive as players who know their toolkit well can deal with so much that either they don't touch most skills outside of high-end rate? I mean, yeah, that's how the game is. So here's the thing. That's not a product of having too many tools. That's a product of having too many tools for the way the game is designed. If there were more things to push the use of these tools to their limit and in more places in the game, then that wouldn't be a problem. But it is a problem only because of that. They don't want to make the average content require all these tools. A fair thing. But the amount of content that even remotely suggests that you use half of your tools is also too low. So it's just one of those things where it's like, that's why people want more damage tools, because we don't need all of the healing and support tools that we have most of the time. And even when we do have them or need them, it can still be a struggle sometimes to find play. Do you know how few pieces of content I feel good using a fairy tether on Scholar, for example? There are sometimes savage encounters where I just tell myself, whatever, just use it because it's just going to sit at 100 otherwise. Like, it's not that there aren't good places to use some of the tools. Sometimes you can force yourself to use a tool that's kind of like overkill for even the easier content, but then it just makes it even easier. So there's like little benefits like that. But yeah, no, you're both on the money with this and also missing the part where the game design kind of it makes this a problem more than it actually should be if there was more frequent damage and requirements for these support tools. All right, and there was just a few quick questions here at the bottom that I feel like I could rattle off. Someone was asking after Uwu and T, what third ultimate should you do? I always think that you should do the old three ultimates, Uwu, T, and UCOB, before touching DSR or top. You don't have to do that, but that would be my usual recommendation. So if you've done T and Uwu, I'd recommend doing UCOB. Somebody asking for advice for a potential employment to Cat. Well, you've already got the idea down. You know, they're employing you more than you're adopting them. And it's just to be patient when you first get them, put them in a room that is not very large where they can slowly get comfortable with their area, leave them food and water so they can take care of themselves if they need to in the middle of the night or throughout the day. Go in and get them comfortable with your scent. Give them something that allows them to rub their scent off and, like, you know, feel more comfortable where they're sleeping. And then after that, you're realistically just taking it slow as they get used to the area they're in. Make sure there's no like little cubby holes they can get in and get stuck or hide in, because then you'll be worried about them. And other than that, have however many cats you have one more litter box than that. That's another big one that I think helps a lot of people, especially while their cat's getting comfortable in their home, so that they don't randomly just decide to go in someplace because they're scared to explore around wherever you live. So those would be a few really basic things. Also, try not to change food types too often. Find one they like that doesn't upset their stomach and stick to it, and maybe just change the flavors around. You don't want to constantly be changing food because that's not good for them either. And then there was one more here. I think there was a few other comments and things I wanted to go back and do. But let's see. What 3 things do you like most from what you saw? Oh, I answered that earlier, so that's perfect. And then there was just like a bunch of comments. There's quite a few comments about me talking about hardcore players, bringing on hardcore players for things like State of the Realm versus casual players. I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding when I talk about the perspective of a hardcore player and their insight. I don't just invite on any hardcore player that plays these jobs. I regularly try to get people who engage in discussion about the pros and cons of these jobs. How do I put this nicely? When someone has a lot of experience in discussing a job's pros and cons, they intrinsically understand it at all levels. If you pay attention to a lot of the discussions, you'll occasionally hear the offhand comment about how for casual players, something may not be a big deal or may not work. But at the higher levels, if you get into that, if you're trying to eventually strive for that, then something can start to cause a problem. That's an insight they have because they're able to look at the job from all of the possible scopes. A casual player can only look at something from a single lens, and that is their casual experience and enjoyment with the job. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the actual function of the job. It doesn't have to do with the actual way that the job plays. All they really know most of the time is just how they play it, how they do their dungeons, how they maybe do their extreme trials, And again, that depends on how you even define casual, because I know casual players who do ultimate raids, and I know casual players that don't even run dungeons in the first place. So there's a lot of different perspectives even within that scope, but you want someone who understands all facets of a job when discussing it. If someone's like a casual player and they don't even functionally know how to play the job, then I can't pass off their thoughts as something for other people. It just doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't how do I describe this? You wouldn't bring in, so let's say you were at like a science summit and you have all these researchers talking about, whatever topics in science. You wouldn't just suddenly grab like a ninth grade, like kid from a science class to come describe what he thinks about any of these topics when they don't have the full grasp of it. It's kind of like that, just like pulling somebody in that doesn't have enough perspective across all the matters. I mean, I guess no matter how many times I describe this, people won't fully understand it. But to put it in the most direct way, there's no value in a casual player's perspective on a job, because they don't fully understand the job in the first place. So I can't pass them off as an expert opinion on the job. That's just a matter of fact. You just wouldn't do that in literally anything else in any topic, pretty much ever. I guess the closest you get is like color commentary in like sports, where someone's not like an analyst or super in depth to the numbers, but they're like a really avid watcher. That's like the closest you kind of get to it. But that's because they really speak well and they offer a different set of skills that allow you to kind of generate hype and build up. And I don't think I can get that from a casual player in a way that is engaging enough for State of the Realm. That's just a matter of fact. I mean, I act as the casual opinion sometimes when it comes to jobs, but I use my game knowledge and my game understanding to make up for that, so I can have somewhat of a discussion while also just trying to engage with the people who have the more expert opinions to try and get some range. So there's just a lot of aspects to it. So I would never deliberately invite someone who doesn't know a lot about a job to talk about a job. It just doesn't make sense. I think there were a few other things in there. The high concept shirt thing was pretty funny. I remember seeing something else that I wanted to, somebody asked me what the best way for viewers and subscribers to support the channel was. I didn't really want to answer that as the very first question, so I put it off. Just watch the videos. Like, honestly, I always make mention of things like super chats and subscribing on Twitch and things like that stuff. But realistically, YouTube, Twitch, content creation, it is by all measures entertainment and in some degree service industry, where it's entirely based on what somebody wants to do. I don't think many of us are picky. Like, yeah, could there be something that monetarily is better than something else? Sure. But I'm not going to tell someone to not do the thing that they're most comfortable with because it benefits me. It's about providing options, and if anyone likes those options, they can utilize them, because I am at the mercy of the people who watch my content, who enjoy my content. I have no right to tell them what to do. That's just a matter of fact. You know, they don't have necessarily the right to tell me what to do either, but I definitely don't have the right to tell them what to do. So I just don't like the idea of doing. Now, of course, if you wanted to ask like, oh, well, you know, let's say I get this question a lot, like, oh, on Twitch, what's the best way to support you on Twitch? I still say watching, because more people watching means more people clicking in, because more people are watching in the first place. Same with YouTube videos, to be fair. But they'll be like, no. I mean, like, you know, Prime sub versus like a normal sub versus bits versus tipping. And I'm like, in that case, bits. You'll pay the most, but I'll make 100% of what you put in there. 100 bits is, you know, 100 cents is $1. You know, whereas if you were to, you know, let's say it's 500 bits versus a $5, you know, Twitch sub, you know, I'll make $3.50 off of the tier 1 sub, and I would have made $5 off the bits. But then you would have paid like $7 to pay those bits. So it's like, you know what I mean? There's just always some level of give and take. So asking that question, being here, watching the videos is my number one way to recommend it. And if you like any of the other options, use whichever one you want. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad to have you here. Anyway, that is going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Reminder, ask your questions in the comment section of the video below for next week's episode, and keep an eye out for some discussion, speculation, etc., based on the stuff that we saw in the letter from the producer, live number 81. Anyway, with that, I will see you in the next video. And until then, take care.